And now it's time. I said and now I said it's time. And now for something completely machinima. And now for something completely machinima. And now for something almost entirely, very precisely, but just not exclusively, sort of adjacently, kind of approximately, complete mesh enigma. And now for something completely mesh enigma. And now for
Welcome, everybody, and now for something completely machinima podcast. My name is Ricky Grove. I'm here with my pals Tracy, Phil Rice, and Damien Valentine. This is our episode in which we share our picks for machinima films. And this week we're going to be hearing from Damien Valentine and his pick. Take it away, Damien.
All right, so this is one of those films that just randomly popped up on my YouTube feed. I don't know how it got on there. It must somehow, maybe it knew that I'd recently watched the Naked Gun films again. Anyway, it came up and it kind of recreates the opening scene of the Naked Gun films where the camera is above the police car of the siren and it kind of goes through all these ridiculous scenes for comedic effect. So this video is by the Hat Loving Gamer. He's done that, and his idea of ridiculous scenes was footage from various video games. Some of these games are incredibly old that I don't think I've actually seen anyone make machinima with before because it's just not really practical. But he does it well. And they're all kind of games. Most of them I don't even know what they are. And I looked at the description. He'd done this video before with even older games, but this video is better. So this is the one I chose. And okay, there's not a huge amount to it, but as a sort of parody of the Naked Gun opening scenes and using a number of different games for the machinima footage source, I thought he did it well. And he calls it the Naked Gun 64-bit. And I had a good laugh at it. And it's not going to be more than that, but sometimes that's all you need. So I thought it's going to be my pick, and I would share it with all of you.
It was fun. Yeah. I mean, this could have been done with a lot less effort, and it wouldn't have had the same effect. But there are some little touches in this that give it a little bit of sense of polish, and there was some work involved. The first and foremost is the reflections on the top of the police car.
Mm-hmm.
That's compositing work. It's very well done. And it just gives you a little bit more immersion there. And then there's at least one point, where the light actually comes loose. I didn't expect that.
Yes, I thought that was good.
So, I mean, who knows what they rendered that foreground part in? It's probably Blender. From the quality of it, it looks like maybe Blender, because it's really nice quality, that foreground. It's photorealistic. So that was probably done in Blender, and they just animated a little bit of the, some of the tilts and the way that the thing fell over and all that. So, yeah, I again, like you said, Damien, it's not one that's going to have me, up at night pondering deep intellectual truths or anything, but it was fun. And I love the Naked Gun movies. They just crack me up. I'm a little concerned about what's about to be done to them with certain upcoming remakes.
Yeah.
Hopefully he has a very particular set of jokes.
Yeah, I don't know why they got Quentin Tarantino to direct it. I just think he's the wrong choice.
Anyway, this it was a fun little diversion. I'm glad it wasn't 1 second longer than it was, because that's about as much of this that this really needs. So yeah, it was a good pick.
Glad you enjoyed it.
Well, I thought it was a great pick too, and I'd like to contrast it to the film that we chose last week, which is Baron Susan's "You're So Sick." Now, Baron Susan, comparing these two, they're examples of somebody who is just a towering, talented filmmaker. This person is not in the same category, but is part of the same community. And they made it with the same kind of sense of fun and dedication to it. And although it's a single joke, the joke doesn't go further than it should. And oftentimes in the machinima community, you'll see somebody make the joke, then they'll make the same joke again, and then they'll make the same joke again. And it's much too long. There isn't enough variety in it. This was the perfect length for what it was trying to do. And the director knew that, and he didn't press it any further. I admire that. I think this is an example of a community-created film, an idea film that somebody was able to execute flawlessly, honestly. Again, it doesn't have the same oomph that Baron Susan's film does, but it shows the range of talents in the community and also the range of things that you can do in machinima. If you don't want to spend months trying to composite or create reversed animations and edit, sync, but you want to use an idea and you want to create something fast that's funny and fun, that'll get everybody laughing and enjoy it. Plus, it might introduce them to the variety of games that are in it. Maybe there's a nostalgic factor to it. This is a perfect example of the short machinima film that does everything right. I just loved it. I thought it was great.
Yeah, well, I completely agree. First thing I thought actually was I haven't seen, I mean, it's great that you've been watching these more recently, but I haven't seen these films for years. But they're the sort of films that once you've seen them, you just will never forget them.
Yeah.
Frank Drebin character, he was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Just a stellar character, really. So good, in fact, that I actually had to look up a version of the clip that that was used in this, of the siren and the light on top of the car where it sort of crashes through the city, and
the point of view shot.
The point of view shot, yeah, yeah. So I did the same thing again as I did with Baron Susan with the with the flyleaf video. Played it side by side, and you would not believe how close it is, shot by shot, to the original.
Huh.
Not. But it has the same style.
Yeah.
And the clips are really, it has that kind of same editing style, which makes it really an excellent homage to the original, which I thought was brilliantly well done. I mean, the same kind of zany approach to that original sequence, the siren blaring, getting into places it shouldn't be, where it shouldn't be, seeing things that it shouldn't, ending up not so much at a donut shop, which is where the original Files of Police Squad thing sort of ended up, but this one ended up at Airplane, which is another one of Leslie Nielsen's classics, of course. So I really love the humor because it just evoked a sense of nostalgia. But I also really like the timing of the edits as well, which I think were all done in a way that gave you a good sense of what the game was that was being used, and then to reflect on the stupidity of the police car being in that world and in that scenario. So that's why I think it was as long as it was, because it needed to just sort of make you remember a little bit more than actually your brain could actually figure out. I think it's really quick-witted in the way that it's been done.
Yeah.
And some of those classic early game clips, I mean, they ran on Sony Mega Drive and also other platforms like also PlayStation and in arcades. And it's really, I think, interesting that this, just like you reflected on it with Baron Susan, I did too, because it's another example of a mashup and a machinima that's doing something a little bit different because it's positioning itself in a period of time basically centered around the 80s or 90s in terms of entertainment culture. You know, the Naked Gun was, I think, an 88 film or series, somewhere around there. And these games are sort of early 80s to early 90s primarily, except when it gets into the world of machinima, which it's also making reference to, which is clearly early 2000s. So the Halo and the GTA examples, which you also see in there, early 2000, 2004, I think, roughly. Super Mario Kart 92 for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Diddy Kong Racing was the 64, 97 and so on. PacMan 1980 and so on and so on. What's not very clear, I think, is whether the creator actually shot all the scenes from those games. But given his name, and when I looked up the other work that he's done, it's certainly possible that he actually did, did get the content out of the games. Maybe he just screen capped them from trailers, but I don't really think so. I think he's actually got the content by playing these games.
I think so too.
Probably on an emulator or something like that.
Very possibly.
The one exception might be the PacMan one because that's not really
TV
not
based
footage from the arcade PacMan. That's just motion graphics
Yeah.
using PacMan assets, which is fine.
Fair enough. Okay. Well, I was going to say it doesn't really matter because I think the point is it's not so much about the retro games, because the car roof is actually doing something different and it's interacting with the scene as well, which you don't really expect it to do. You kind of think it's just going to be a layered thing, but it's not. It's actually interfering with what's going on. You see them shooting at each other and reflections and what have you. So there's a bit more to it in terms of the technical competence in the way that it's been done than you might initially sort of think. But I think what I would conclude from it is it's a contemporary take on a mashup of a retro aesthetic and all these kind of cultural references. And it's definitely an interesting approach. And I suspect we'll see a lot more of this kind of mashup homage type thing as time goes by. Yeah, I think we will.
I hope so.
I think this pick is also very timely for another reason, though, which is I thought why, Damien, you might have picked it, which is because of its reference to Nintendo in the opening scene of the film, which refers to this sort of Naked Gun being for the 64. Well, when did Switch 2 release? Was it 2 days ago?
2 or 3 days ago, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
From when we're recording.
Okay. So one of the interesting things I think about Switch 2 is that it states that it's got backwards compatibility. Now, I'm guessing that's not necessarily to games as old as these.
It's to the Switch 1 for the most part. And some older Nintendo games have been updated to run on the Switch 1, and some of that is going to carry over. But I haven't really looked too closely at it. I never really grew up with a Nintendo console, so I don't have that nostalgia enough to want to play those old games. So it's not really something I looked into too closely. I think you have to have a special subscription to be able to play them, and some of them are time limited as well. I don't really know how that works.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I did look up Nintendo Life. Had an article on the original games that are immediately backwards compatible with the new two, and none of these games are, as far as I can see. Some are, like you say, some might be able to. You might be able to do something with a patch of some sort, I guess.
They'd have to be ported. These games, most of these games that were depicted here are such a different generation of technology that it's very possible that the publisher, usually what they've been doing is they'll go back if they own these old properties, they'll port a bunch of them and sell them as some kind of a bundle for a few bucks. And you can
okay.
find those on the iPad. You can find them. Activision has a whole bundle of these really old arcade-like games.
I suppose
package it with an
There was a
emulator.
movement for that. There was a demand and a movement for that. They were pirated largely.
yeah.
And they would be arcade ROMs, they called them. And basically, you could get an emulator that would run them on a modern PC, but it would be these arcade games from the 1980s and stuff. And I think that enough activity happened there that the publishers who actually own these thought, oh, well, why don't we make a legitimate way for people to get them?
Yeah.
But their
And so
legitimate
you
way
see that from time to time.
their legitimate way was probably just use the exact same pirated software and just package it out
It very well
themselves,
could be.
or
Yeah.
something very
Yeah.
similar to it.
Very well could be. Yeah.
Do you think, though, looking at this, because the graphic quality is better than I would have expected?
If you're playing on an emulator, sometimes the emulators let you upscale, so
Yes.
you can play at a higher resolution.
That was my thought too. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
It depends
Yeah,
on
he
the
wouldn't have been, he
emulator.
wouldn't have been playing it on the original console to get this kind of
No.
image fidelity. Yeah, it's some kind of emulator, and yeah, they have the upscaling is not terribly difficult when the resolution is so low like this. You just do a pixel
Right.
Yeah.
upsize,
infill
and it
type
actually
thing.
is quite crisp. Yeah,
It may have run the actual footage through an upscaling as well, like you
yeah.
did.
Which
with
would have
the-
worked well too
Yeah.
for this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I suppose so. That's sort of one sort of observation I had on it, the Switch 2 thing. The other thing that I thought was very interesting was the chip to tune outro of Huey Lewis, which I thought was another very interesting retro reference. And then what I noticed, like you said, Damien, he'd actually done another version of this, an earlier version, 2017 version of it, where he'd used a chip tune intro to the Naked Gun soundtrack. And I actually was a bit disappointed then. Why did he not continue to use that in this version of it? Because that would have just positioned it so nicely, this sort of chiptune sort of style. I guess it might have been a bit more difficult to actually get your kind of cultural reference in place if you were born in the 1980s, which I suspect this guy was not. But yeah, it just made me want to sort of hear chiptunes a bit more in it than some of the soundtrack from the film, actually. And then I suppose the other thing I was asking was, why on earth did he use that particular film? Why that one? What was the point of that? And I guess then, because I didn't even know there was a new Naked Gun movie coming out, so I actually some of the comments were, "Oh yes, there is a new one coming out, and Liam Neeson's in the title role, playing the son of Frank Drebin."
Let's move on.
Well, I found the trailer. I tell you what, I shall not be rushing out to watch that.
No.
No, just does not hold any interest for me whatsoever. So yeah, I don't know. I thought it was a really interesting one, and I really enjoyed sort of digging around it. But I really thought you were going to say a bit more about Switch 2 because that's where.
It actually wasn't on my mind when I chose it, but when I watched it again to refresh my mind, because I chose this a few days after our last recording session, so I wasn't thinking that far ahead. But then when I watched it again to refresh my mind a few days ago, I thought, yeah, it's just timed quite nicely, isn't
Yeah,
it?
you have really timed it very nicely. I thought very well done.
But it was just a complete coincidence.
Okay. I wouldn't have said that.
Well, then I guess that's our episode. However, before we leave, I did want to have a short message for all the Glurons out there. And it's on my T-shirt. Justice for Snarbo.
Yes.
Justice for Snarbo.
Fantastic.
That's it. Thank you, Damien, for your excellent choice. It was a really interesting contrast to last week's pick. And Phil and Tracy, thank you. If you have comments, talk at completelyMachinima.com. We'll have show notes at completelyMachinima.com as well with links to the movie and links to topics that we've mentioned here. Thank you. Next week, we'll be back with another pick and some news updates. So we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Right.
Bye.
Bye bye.